Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making a plant pot using Dollar Tree foam board. I've used two dies. Make sure your dies measure exactly the same when you put them to edges. Of course, you're making a box. I cut one large square and I cut four rectangles. I join those together temporarily using masking tape. This is from Dollar Tree. The reason for the masking tape is so that you can pick the whole thing up, flip it over, onto which we're going to be using some gesso to seal the surface. We're then going to use some glass bead gel, which will go through a Tim Holtz stencil. We're going to be using distress inks in brushed corduroy and peel paint. Going to be using Craftsmart premium gilding paint in brass colour. We will seal it using Mod Podge Super Gloss Brilliant. It has a really good shine and a good strong finish. I highly recommend this. We're going to need a large brush to apply the gesso. This is a nice old one that I've got. And also a small palette knife to apply the glass bead gel. Right, I'm going to apply the gesso to the surface and then I will be back. I've finished applying the gesso and it will now take about 30 to 40 minutes for it to dry. While that's happening, I'm going to clean my work surface and wash my brush. Back soon. My gesso is now dry and I'm back. I've actually decided to change the colours that I intend to use, and I'm going to use bundled sage and tea dye. And instead of using my ink pads, I'm going to use re-inkers. I've had these quite a few years. I started buying Tim Holtz distress inks possibly 14 or 15 years ago. These colours weren't available then, but if you've had them for a while on your shelf, it's always advisable to give them a good shake. And I'm going to put a drop onto my mat here. It's quite thick, and I'm also going to put some, move this over slightly, some bundled sage. And I think I'm going to use the sage before I use the tea dye. And I've got a squirty bottle. I'm going to put some water down on the mat. And I'm using a large brush because it's quite a large surface that I'm going to cover. So I'm going into the water first before I go into the re-inker. And I'm just going to brush it on. As you can see, parts of it are repelling quite nicely at the moment. I'm getting all those brush strokes coming through, and I'm going to be doing each of the panels. Of course, I am going to be stenciling the outside panels. I won't be stenciling the base because that needs to stand onto a flat surface. And I'm just going to finish doing this and I'll be back to show you. I finished using the bundled sage and it's now touch dry, and I'm going to go in with the tea dye. I've already mixed in a small amount of water and I'm just going to decide. I want this to be quite rustic, and just choosing a few areas where I want it, where the green is still going to be able to show through. And of course I'm going to be stenciling directly over the top of this, and that will be painted. I'm going to need some more of this. That will be painted using the brass gilding paint. I'm just going to have to put a small squirt of water back down there, not too much. As you can see, some panels are going to look slightly darker than others. That's fine. If you're like me, always turning your vase around to change the view of it, that can be quite beneficial. And I'm just going to carry on doing this, and I'll be back when this is done. Okay, I've finished doing that, and I'm now going to use some kitchen paper to give a mottled effect, which is something that you see in a lot of different pottery glazes. So it's kind of it's blending, and it's giving a stippling mottled effect. There, I'm happy with that, and I'm now going to dry it, and I'll be back when I finish doing that. My piece is now dry, and if you look at the surface here, you'll see that the tea dye has gone down into the deeper brush marks of the gesso. It gives an effect of, as I say, glazed pottery, and of course the brush strokes in the gesso also help to give it that effect. So now that it's dry, I'm going to use a Tim Holtz stencil, as I said, just on the 4 outer panels, because this is the bottom of the pot or the box, and you need that to be flat. And I'm using my glass bead gel, which really is glass beads inside gel. I'll show you inside the pot there. And I'm going to use my palette knife. This stuff's quite expensive, so you know, as thick or as thin as you want it, but I tend to use it quite thinly, and then I find that a jar will last me 3 or 4 years. And then just peel that up, and you can see the texture there, which is going to dry to look just like glass. And I'm going to continue to do the other 4 panels, and I will be back when I've done that. I've now completed stenciling all 4 sides of the pot stroke box, and glass bead gel will take several hours to dry, if not 24 hours, depending on your climate. So once this is dry, we will come back and do the whole finish thing, where it will be folded up, it will be fitted together, and you'll be able to see for yourself that it will look just like a clay vase.